Now we're going to talk about that initial meeting when you and your prospect first come together. You, of course, want to be certain that you're not hitting a brick wall before the meeting even starts. You wish to be embraced. You wish to be welcomed. And so we're going to talk about what you need to do to make that happen. So, how did you and the client first come together? Did the client call you in? Or is this a result of you seeking to have the meeting from your side and they're consenting to the meeting? Of course, the big difference there is that when they call the meeting, there's typically more of an urgent need, and when you call the meeting, they're likely more just curious and interested in what you have to say, what others have done, and it's not necessarily because there's an urgent need. You're going to have to build that need for them by showing them what they're missing out on, what they're likely to lose, etc. When you have the initial meeting, be really clear on what your objective is. It probably, in most instances, is not going to lead to an immediate decision if you're selling coaching or consulting services. Certainly it happens, but that's more the exception than the rule. So if that's not your objective, then what should your objective be? And it can certainly vary, but a good objective would simply be to agree to meet again after they have done some homework so that you can respond to their needs with greater clarity. It could be simply to meet others in their unit being either their familial unit, their business unit. Depending again on what you're coaching or consulting on, the needs can vary in terms of what that next objective should be, but be very clear in your mind what you're hoping to accomplish with the meeting. If it's simply to stop by and introduce yourself and say hi, not valuable. There has to be a clear outcome or output that you seek and communicate that. You're not hiding it, it's not a secret. In the initial meeting, if you are able, try to get all the appropriate people who will influence or make the decision together, either in the room if it's face to face, if it's remote, if they can dial in or participate in the video call in one way or another. If you're just selling to an individual, that individual may be all you need to have on the call. But if there are going to be others involved in influencing or making the decision, to the best of your ability, try to get them in on that initial meeting. Reason being, you'll be in a much better position to meet all of the needs, or at least uncover them and determine which ones you can meet and which ones are beyond your scope or reach in being able to provide a workable solution. So of course you're wondering, what do you say in this initial meeting? And the best thing to say is very little. Let them talk. Ask questions. Respond to their questions appropriately. But you're not seeking to dominate the meeting. Rather, you want them to uncover what they see as the gap, what they're prepared to do to close the gap, perhaps what they've tried previously, what has worked and what has not, why they think that is the case, that they were able to succeed or fall short, what they will choose to determine as the appropriate measures for success. All these kinds of questions get them talking and get them to share how they wish the relationship to progress. Now, you don't have to necessarily do exactly as they say once the project begins. Right now, you're just looking to source what their expectations are what their perspectives are on what would be a successful engagement or relationship. And then when we get to the contracting step, we can determine what the best way to accomplish that goal is mutually. It may be using a lot of what they think is the best approach, or you may have other ideas you'd like to share with them and see if they'll agree to those. But for this point in the initial contact, all you're looking to do is to better understand their perspective. So I'd like to share, I'll share my screen. I'd like to share one way of doing this that I have seen used very effectively. This was taught again by Mike Bosworth, who I had referenced earlier. And this is a way to get somebody to go from the most broad to a more narrow perspective on what a project should look like. So let's assume we've gotten to the point where they have identified what we call a pain, the gap in their behavior, performance, outcomes, what it is that they seek. That's what we're going to call our identified pain. You don't earn the right to provide a solution until you have demonstrated from their perspective you understand their scenario. So you ask in that diagnose reasons, tell me about it. What do you perceive is the origin or the cause of this situation? Get them talking about how they have scoped the particular issue or problem. Then you go to explore impact. And this is important because very often your prospect will only see as far as the end of their nose, and they're not considering how it could be rolling through others that they engage or interact with. So you want to explore the impact. So you'd ask something besides yourself, who else is impacted by this situation? And then specifically, what is that impact? How are they impacted? If you can help your prospect recognize that it's a larger concern than simply their individual unique connection to the issue, it's going to be something that they're going to want to resolve far more quickly. Then you ask, as you try to create the vision with them, what is it going to take for you? It's important that you use that word, for you to solve this situation. And you allow them to speak. You must complete these 3 steps before you can begin to make your recommendations, because you haven't demonstrated that you understand until you've gotten through at least some version or variation of these kinds of questions. Then, once they have shared what they perceive to be their requirements to solve the situation, now you're able to share by saying, may I make a few suggestions, or would you be open to hearing some of my ideas? Something that allows them to give you permission. Until they give you permission, they're not ready to hear your ideas, your solutions. So you see we started with, on the left side, very open-ended questions. Now we're going to go to more of the control questions. And as you see here, you would ask questions like, is it because, and you start to prompt with certain reasons that they may be experiencing the issue that they may not have considered. Then you go to the exploring the impact of that. Is this situation also causing, fill in the blank with whatever that may be? And are there others that are or could be concerned because this issue exists? Then you go to the capabilities, and here you get to fantasize with them a bit. What if there were a way for you to do the following? Would that be of assistance? Would that help? So you somewhat get them to expand into almost a dream state. What would it be like? Here's again where you use the emotions, and then you go to what we call confirm. So the reasons for your situation are because you've now gotten their perspective on this. You've suggested some possibilities that perhaps they hadn't. You've come to an agreement whether those worked or didn't work in terms of describing the situation. And now you're just summarizing using their words, their agreement. Then, from what you have shared, from what I have heard, this is also a problem that ripples through others. The spouse, the children, the departmental head, the unit, whatever it may be that you're trying to solve for them. And then you confirm the vision. So if there were a way for you to do the following, you're confident that this would solve your problem, or words to that effect. Get them to say, if I could reach up and grab what we're proposing, it would solve the issue. If you get a no that wouldn't solve the issue, then you need to go back through these 9 boxes and come up with what else needs to be included or what has a higher priority than the initial issue that was presented to you. This takes some practice. This is not going to be something that is going to just innately occur, but I would highly endorse you try to do this. So, I've put on the left and the right the questions that are process oriented. The content is the middle. Use process and content together. If you just run in there with the content, that's going to cause a certain amount of resistance. You need to develop their trust and confidence in this initial meeting, that they feel heard, and that the mutually developed solution is one worth pursuing. So I'd like you to use this form that I have included on the platform. You can use it with any particular issue, whether it's your child is struggling with math homework and they're refusing to do their math homework, whether it's conflict you're having with a neighbor, whatever it may be. Use this form and try to get them to identify the issue, explain how they perceive it's affecting them, what they see as the likely solution, work with them and practice your skills using this 9 box. And I look forward to seeing you in our very next session.